You know, I've always wondered where the phrase holy shit originated from. When you really take a moment to think about it, it seems like such an odd choice of words to express when we think something is surprising, shocking, or impressive. Holy being a word mostly associated with religious terminology, but otherwise used in exclamations of astonishment or dismay, and shit a vulgar way of referring to excrement, fecal matter, or I guess really whatever you want. There had to be some person at some point in time that first threw the two together, and although I can't understand why they did it, I'm so happy you did, random individual from the past, because you've provided us with one of the most popular ways to convey so many variations of different emotions. Now I know what you're probably thinking right now. What the absolute fuck is he talking about? I thought I clicked on a Loki review. Well, don't you worry, you did. That ridiculous narrative intro was merely an absurd way of communicating the thought that crossed my mind throughout the majority of this episode. Holy shit. Let's get into it. The opening scene brings us to, whoa, holy shit, Asgard? We about to see Thor? Ah, shit, nah, it's just little Sylvie before she became an unnatural blonde. Before there's much time to think about anything else, a time door opens up behind her and a group of Minutemen led by Renslayer arrest her for being a variant. She's brought back to the TVA and taken to the courtroom, but they don't get a chance to discuss her case. Lil Sylvie snags Renslayer's tempad and uses it to escape. How did the woman who let a child escape from the courtroom of their bureau become a judge? Shut up, that involves story development. So back in present time, we find Renslayer taking the elevator down to speak to the timekeepers, but of course they don't show the conversation. Mobius intercepts her on her way out to get the rundown of the discussion and asks to speak to Hunter C-20, the female agent who was enchanted by Sylvie to reveal the location of the timekeepers, but Renslayer says she died due to losing her mind after the enchantment. Something ain't right about this. Back on the soon-to-be Doom Lamentus 1, Sylvie tells Loki about her somewhat remembering her life on Asgard before the TVA first came together and how she's been on the run ever since. Loki gives her some positive reinforcement, but the incoming asteroids are getting closer and closer. Just as the end is near, the TVA detect the variant activity of Loki and Sylvie about to fall in love for some reason, and pop over there to arrest them. As punishment for running off, Mobius sends Loki through a time cell which brings him to Asgard where he sees... holy shit, Sif? Beating the hell out of him over and over again in a time loop. Eventually, Mobius pulls Loki out to interrogate him further, and the worn-out Mischief Maker drops the bomb on him that all the TVA agents are variants. But after some initial hesitancy, Mobius claims he's bluffing. Then he heads over to Renslayer's office for a celebratory drink on closing the Loki case, but he continues to show an enormous amount of skepticism towards the details surrounding all of this. Renslayer dismisses each of his concerns and plays it off like it's only because she cares about him, but an unconvinced Mobius sneakily swaps out his tempad with hers when she's not looking. While that's going on, Hunter B-15 aggressively enters Sylvie's cell and leads her through a time door, bringing her back to the hurricane apocalypse they found her at so she could ask about the memory she saw when being enchanted. Sylvie enchants her again to prove the fact that all TVA agents are indeed variants. Immediately afterwards, Mobius also finds his variant theory proof via Renslayer's tempad, which shows what really happened to Hunter C-20. She didn't lose her mind, she found out the truth, and Renslayer, and whoever else are really running the TVA, Kang, don't like woke people. So, Mobius grabs Loki out of the time cell to team up and put a stop to this TVA madness, but upon exiting the prison, they find Renslayer and some Minutemen waiting for them, and they fucking prune Mobius? Holy shit! Renslayer brings Loki and Sylvie into the golden elevators down to meet the timekeepers, who looked and sounded much different than I expected them to. I don't know, they were kind of weird, and aside from the one in the middle, they were a bit hard to understand without subtitles. They have a little chat, and then Hunter B-15 comes down to assist our duo by releasing them from their restraints. Loki and Sylvie fight off some agents, and after Sylvie chucks a sword and decapitates one of the timekeepers, we find out, holy shit, they're just androids? After a brief moment of shock, Loki non-awkwardly transitions to deciding to reveal his true feelings for Sylvie, but just as he's on the verge of doing so, Renslayer prunes him? Holy shit, what the fuck is going on in this episode? Sylvie disarms Renslayer and demands to know what's really going on here. Then we get the credits, but we also get our first mid-credit scene, which surprisingly enough shows none other than Loki waking up, alive and well, only to find himself confronted by 4 of the most intriguing variations of Loki I could imagine, including, holy shit, Richard E. Grant in the classic comic book Loki costume. Then the episode ends. There's the breakdown of episode 4, the Nexus Event. You know, I kept going back and forth a little bit after my first viewing, but after watching it a second time through, I can safely say that not only is this my favorite installment of the series we've gotten up to now, but this could very well be the single best episode of a Marvel Disney Plus series we've gotten so far. Yes, Jonathan from Man of Movies, I am agreeing with your opinion that you brought up on the live stream. You've officially persuaded me. The weight behind the impact of some of these moments is pretty groundbreaking for a miniseries, and it really leaves you wondering where the hell it's going from here. And that's the way it should be. Is it nice to predict potential outcomes and theorize on events to come? Absolutely. But what makes that so much fun is when you genuinely aren't sure if you're right or not. The fact that we seem to get some solidified confirmation on the true identity of Sylvie is a continued step in the right direction. To be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if there's still something to be revealed about her that we don't know yet, but being able to narrow down that for the time being she is indeed Lady Loki is a relief. Though I'm a little saddened and dare I say confused that she is an enchantress. Getting the opportunity to get another glimpse of Asgard was a great introduction, and seeing Sylvie taken away at such a young age allows for us to empathize that much more with her character and what she's had to go through the majority of her life. Loki himself moves another inch forward in his redemption arc, but it still feels like the most forced element of the show. I can't help but have a difficult time believing that he could have had such an emotional turn so quickly, even given his bizarre, life-altering circumstances. It truly feels like we're watching the Loki that we saw redeemed throughout the MCU films up to Endgame. Nonetheless, it is effective to the extent that his slight selflessness successfully brings Mobius to the light of the real situation at hand here. Emphasis on slight selflessness because you know damn well Loki is telling him this for his own personal gain as well. The reveal of the Timekeepers was... I don't know how to feel about that entirely. They sure as hell aren't androids in the comics, and I'm not too sure what to take away from them being androids here. My only logical guess/theory is what I've been saying for the past couple of weeks now. There has got to be some sort of involvement from Kang. Even though Kang has a history with the real Timekeepers in the comics, perhaps the MCU version here will make it a story where Kang created them? It doesn't really fit with Kang's backstory since he's much more of an enthusiastic advocate for the existence of the multiverse, but the MCU has switched story details around a lot before, so I wouldn't be terribly surprised. Plus, that would easily explain why Mrs. Outsmarted by a Child went from your standard TVA agent to a judge. Renslayer is Kang's right-hand woman from the comics. Lastly, I really want to focus on that mid-credit scene for a moment. First of all, this was an interesting and welcome surprise to see that apparently those who have been pruned merely get sent somewhere else as opposed to being erased from existence, which gives us hope that Mobius is still alive too. And that brings me to where it is that they're sent. Now, we don't see Mobius in the mid-credit scene, so we don't know for sure if everyone pruned gets sent to the same place or not, but if you pay close attention, we can briefly notice that Loki appears to have been sent to a desolate, perhaps post-nuke New York, as a destroyed version of the Avengers Tower can be seen in the background. But as interesting as that is, forget the background, what about those other 4 Lokis? Seriously, whoever convinced Richard E. Grant to dress up in the ridiculous-looking classic comic book outfit deserves a raise in a corner office. That was quite possibly the biggest holy shit moment for me. Initially, it was when Mobius and Loki got pruned, but then when you see Loki alive, this one took the cake. I am ecstatic to see more of him, as well as the other Loki variants we got presented with. One of them's a fucking alligator, for Christ's sake. Does that mean we'll see Frog Thor, aka Throg? It also makes me wonder if those are the only variants of him that we'll see. I mean, I don't want them to go overboard, but the opportunities are literally endless here. So much to take in and so much to wonder about. But just as always, everyone, I would love to know what you thought about this episode. Did you find it to be as entertaining as I did? Or did you think it was a step backwards maybe? Where do you think Loki got sent to, and what plan do you believe him and the other Lokis will hatch? And for the love of everything Marvel, when the hell are we gonna hear Mobius say wow? Like the video if you enjoyed this content, subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you can stay up to date with future breakdowns, and I'll catch you at the next review.